Noble Team, a group of elite Spartan super soldiers tasked with the defense of humanity against the impending Covenant threat, often against all odds. Being primarily composed of Spartan 3s pulled out of their companies by Lieutenant Commander Kurt Ambrose and Senior Chief Petty Officer Franklin Mendez, they were able to avoid large-scale operations that would have otherwise been fatal for them. This was because each member of the team represented a soldier too valuable to lose through conventional warfare, as they were selected for their skills, intelligence, efficiency, and of course, bravery. Each name to have made the roster over the years belonged to an exemplary individual who was committed to the survival of humanity. And like with any great saga, their tale also carries with it the weight of loss and death, as during the fall of rh'tol, nearly every member of Noble Team fell to the Covenant invasion. In this video, we'll be commemorating the anniversary of haloreach's release, and we'll be exploring the lore and histories of each of these extraordinary Spartans, from the fearless leader Carter A259 to the tech-savvy Cat B320, the deadly sniper June A266, the stealthy assassin Emil A239, the powerhouse that was George 052, and the enigmatic Spartan B312. So join me, as today we honor the legacy of Noble Team and their role in giving humanity a fighting chance. We start with Spartan B312, whose true name is unknown, but what we do know is that he was born on the colony world of Jericho 7. Not much is known about his early life, other than that following the Covenant's destruction of his colony in 2535, he was left an orphan. He was then later recruited into the Spartan 3 program's Beta 5 division, and due to his outstanding performance and ability to operate independently, he was handpicked by the program's lead Kurt Ambrose to be separated from the rest of his company, and instead carry out covert operations. B312's reassignment allowed him to avoid the fatal Operation Torpedo, a tragic massacre for the majority of the Spartan 3s. The Office of Naval Intelligence saw this as an opportunity to hide his survival and had his identity classified, creating a unique situation which allowed him to operate as a covert operative and assassin, reporting only to Oni. During his shrouded military career, he was best known for single-handedly toppling terrorist organizations and being able to take out entire rebel militias and make them disappear overnight. To further prove his effectiveness, he was designated with the hyperlethal classification, one that only one other Spartan in history has received. His reputation caught the attention of Colonel Urban Holland, who requested his transfer to Noble Team following the death of one of the team's previous members. After his reassignment to the role of Noble 6 on rh'tol, he would partake in numerous missions and counteroffensive against the newly discovered Covenant presence on the planet. Deployed across multiple cities and regions, B312 was involved in every aspect of the missions that the team was tasked with. However, one by one, each of these missions led to the deaths of nearly every member, including himself. But before the planet was completely lost, he was able to retrieve and deliver the AI Cortana to the UNSC Pillar of Autumn. As B312 chose to stay behind, he then had to fight off dozens of Covenant craft and even managed to destroy a battlecruiser before it began glassing the area. In doing so, the UNSC Pillar of Autumn escaped the planet along with Spartan John 117 and the AI Cortana, discovering the Halo array shortly after. B312 would then make his last stand, fighting off waves of Covenant forces until he was overwhelmed and killed by several Sangheili. His contributions to evacuation efforts, the defense of the planet, and the disruption of Covenant movement makes Spartan B312 one of the most influential Spartans in history. Following his death, he was labeled missing in action. George 052 was born in the small city of Palhaza on the planet rh'tol. When he was 6 years old, he was one of the many children who were abducted and conscripted into the Spartan 2 super soldier program. Here he survived a number of experimental augmentations, which improved nearly every aspect of his biology and physical prowess. George was largely recognized for his above-average size, but he was also brave, empathetic, selfless, and avoided losses at all costs. During his military service, George was best known for his resilience and durability, as well as his unwavering commitment to the protection of humanity. Following his graduation from the program, he was heavily wounded. While the severity of his injuries is documented as being extensive, it is not entirely clear if this was true, as it is suspected that the program's lead, Catherine Halsey, may have falsified his reports to have him transferred out of active service. In either case, he eventually recovered and was transferred to Unicom Spec War Group 3, where he was reassigned to Noble Team. Following his reassignment to the role of Noble 5, George operated as the team's heavy weapons specialist and was the only Spartan 2 to have served on the team. He and Noble Team carried out several missions together to slow the Covenant's invasion of human-occupied worlds. His most notable contribution during this time was in Operation Uppercut, where he and Noble 6 commandeered a Sabre starfighter and delivered a weaponized slipspace drive to the Covenant corvette Ardent Prayer. Their goal was to ensure the detonation of the slipspace bomb once the corvette had docked inside the CSS battlecruiser Long Night of Solace. After infiltrating the corvette and fighting through several waves of Covenant forces, George and Noble 6 returned to their Pelican to escape, but upon their return, they had found that the device had been damaged and remote activation was no longer possible. Realizing that someone would need to stay behind, George volunteered himself without a second thought and allowed Noble 6 to escape via atmospheric re-entry. As the corvette began to dock, George activated the slipspace bomb, and the resulting slipspace rupture split the Long Night of Solace in two. Because of his sacrifice, Operation Uppercut was ultimately a success, but George 052 would go on to be labeled missing in action. Emil A239 was born in the city of Luxor on Eridanus II, where he suffered the loss of his parents at a young age due to insurrectionist activities. He and his only brother did what they could to survive until the Covenant discovered their homeworld in 2530. His brother sacrificed himself to ensure that Emil escaped the planet's glassing, leaving him an orphan. In the years following, he was recruited into the Spartan 3 program's Alpha Company, keen to join the military and avenge the deaths of his family. Exceptional even among his peers, Emil graduated from the program at the age of 13 and was separated from Alpha Company due to his skills and brutality. He was one of a handful selected to carry out covert missions apart from the rest of his company, sparing him from the tragedies that were large-scale Spartan 3 operations. He was noted as being ruthless and showed no mercy against both insurrectionist rebels and the Covenant alike. In 2551, he was reassigned to Noble Team, taking on the title of Noble 4. Following his reassignment to Noble Team, Emil's first mission with the team was the Battle of Fumarole, where they attacked a CSS battlecruiser positioned above the planet's capital city. He also participated in a number of other missions leading up to and during the Covenant's invasion of Reach, where the team was originally dispatched to locate and eliminate a high-priority rebel leader. Because of his well-documented treatment of insurrectionists, Emil was nearly pulled off of the mission altogether by Colonel Holland. However, he was kept on, and his contributions would be incredibly influential during the fall of Reach. His most notable contribution being his part in the delivery of the AI Cortana to the UNSC Pillar of Autumn. But this is also where he would make his last stand. As Noble 6 handed off the AI to the escort team, Emil took control of an Onager Mac platform nearby to help provide air support, while 6 dealt with ground forces. He was able to pick off the majority of enemy craft, however, a Phantom was able to slip past him and deployed several elite zealots. He was nearly successful in fighting them all off, but one was able to catch him by surprise and stabbed him through the back with an energy sword. In Emil's final moments, he unsheathed his shoulder-mounted kukri and delivered a fatal blow to his killer. Moments later, he would succumb to his injuries and go on to be labeled missing in action. June A266 was born in Tyumen on the colony world New Harmony, where he lost his parents at a young age due to the Covenant's ongoing genocide of humanity. Years later, he was recruited into the Spartan 3 program's Alpha Company, and despite being one of the youngest recruits, managed to emerge as an exemplary marksman and scout among his peers. And like all Spartan 3s, he received his augmentations once he had graduated the program, but he was nearly crippled in the process. In due time, he recovered, and he was immediately reassigned to begin leading his own covert headhunter team, carrying out covert missions exclusively for Oni. His specialized role allowed him to avoid tragedies such as Operation Prometheus and other Spartan 3 suicide missions, instead allowing him to spend his early career carrying out anti-insurrectionist operations behind enemy lines, eliminating rebel leadership and disrupting militias. He was incredibly instrumental in helping prevent further rebellions, but as the Covenant quickly became the UNSC's top priority, he was reassigned to Noble Team. Following his reassignment to Noble Team, June adopted the call sign of Noble 3 and acted as the team's sniper and scout. He and the team carried out several missions to combat Covenant invasions, such as on the planet Concord and Fumarole. Eventually, they were reassigned to Reach to help eliminate a high-priority insurrectionist leader. While Reach saw each member of the team sacrifice their lives one by one, he would ultimately be the team's only survivor, due in part to his final task of protecting and extracting Catherine Halsey from the planet, but how he escaped himself is still shrouded in Oni cover-ups. As the Human-Covenant War came to its end, June retired from active service and was brought in to help with the recruitment and development of the Spartan 4 program. He helped in training and recruiting key players such as Sarah Palmer, Edward Davis, Edward Buck, the other members of Alpha 9, and Holly Tanaka, just naming a few. and following the AI Leonidas' self-destruction of Laconia training station, his whereabouts were all but unclear, but due to recent intercepted communications, we know once again that he has escaped death. Catherine B320, or Cat, was born in Monastir on the colony planet New Harmony. After losing her father in combat on Harvest in 2530 and her mother to cancer in 2536, she was raised by her retired army general grandmother. Due to her grandmother's influence, Cat's enlistment into the Spartan 3 program was politically complicated. However, following her grandmother's death during the fall of New Harmony, Oni took advantage of the situation and conscripted her into Beta Company with no dispute. Recognized for her advanced skills, Cat was handpicked for special operations by Kurt Ambrose and Franklin Mendez after she had received her augmentations. Avoiding deployment during Operation Torpedo, Cat went on to have a successful military career, with a highlight being her development of a method to bypass the safety limiters on the Mjolnir armor platform's actuators, enabling brief bursts of enhanced performance and speed. Her ability to excel in tasks involving BattleNet management, tactical planning, and intelligence synthesis eventually caught the eye of Colonel Urban Holland, who requested her reassignment to Noble Team. In late 2551, Noble Team was sent to the colony world of Concord to help defend it against the massing Covenant threat. Their dropship crashed due to a snowstorm, forcing them to travel on foot to the town of Scathy. Cat then devised a plan called Operation Offset I to fend off the Covenant attack with their limited resources, and was successful in the defeat and capture of a Zashk pattern Draugr. Later, during the Battle of Fumarole in 2552, Cat had planned an operation to destroy a CSS battlecruiser utilizing a Fury nuke. En route, she was targeted by a Banshee's fire, being incapacitated, and lost her right arm in the attack. The team's previous Noble 6, Tom A293, had recovered the bomb and had to sacrifice his life in order to complete the mission. Cat held herself personally responsible for his death, and it weighed heavily on her for the next several months. She later received a robotic prosthetic for her arm, and, despite the injury, remained in active service. During the fall of Reach, Cat proposed a similar plan, only this time using a repurposed slipspace drive. The mission was ultimately successful, as we know, but also required the sacrifice of George 052. During the siege of New Alexandria, Noble Team was evacuating a high-rise when Cat was killed by a waiting Covenant sniper. Her death was only possible due to an EMP that had occurred moments earlier, which had temporarily disabled her armor's shielding. Her loss was deeply felt by the rest of her team, as she went on to be listed missing in action. Carter A529 was born in Durban on the planet Biko, where he experienced the loss of both of his parents when the Covenant glassed his homeworld in 2526. He survived and was later conscripted into the Spartan 3 program's Alpha Company in 2532. Carter's exceptional skills led him to stand out among his peers, catching the attention of his superiors, as he was later separated from the rest of the company to spare him from suicidal missions due to his value. Carter's strong leadership skills, both in and out of combat, propelled him through the ranks and quickly achieved him the rank of commander. His abilities were exceptional among Spartans, and after receiving his augmentations in 2536, Carter was transferred to Unicom's operational control to help rally support for the Spartan 3 program, where he was approached by Colonel Urban Holland to lead an elite team of Spartan operatives called Noble Team. Over the years, the team's roster would change, but only he and Catherine B320 are what remained from Noble Team's original members by the end of the war. Carter and Noble Team participated in the defense of Concord and the Battle of Fumarole. Both missions were ultimately successful, but cost the life of Tom A293, a death which weighed heavily on Carter. Throughout the fall of Reach, Carter led a new roster of Noble Team throughout various engagements against the Covenant, including the investigation of a communications blackout at the Visegrad Relay and the repelling of Covenant forces at Sword Base. Following the deaths of Catherine B320 and George 052, Carter and the remaining members of Noble retrieved and planned to deliver a highly valuable AI to the UNSC Pillar of Autumn, but were met with heavy resistance from Covenant forces. Sometime during the transport of the package to the Autumn, Carter was gravely injured within the Pelican's cockpit. Knowing that the delivery of the package was one of humanity's highest priorities, he ordered Noble 6 and Emil A239 to drop out of the Pelican and proceed by ground while he diverted the Covenant's aerial forces. During the journey groundside, the two Spartans encountered a scarab blocking their path, and Carter, still in the Pelican, sacrificed himself by ramming into it, incapacitating it and allowing the two Spartans to accomplish their objective. Killed on impact, he went on to be listed as missing in action. From the moment they took their first steps on the war-torn planet of Reach until their final breath, Noble Team's journey encapsulated the very essence of what it means to be a Spartan, or rather, a hero. And while June remains the only surviving member of the team, the legacy of Noble lives on in the survival of humanity, as without their efforts, the AI Cortana may have fallen into the hands of the Covenant, the Pillar of Autumn may have never escaped from Reach, and Master Chief may have never made it to Installation 04 to prevent the Covenant from using it. Without their contributions leading up to the fall of Reach, humanity may have certainly lost much more during the war, if not the war itself. So today, we not only remember Reach, we remember Noble Team. Thanks for watching everyone, but that's all for now. I'll see you in the next video.